my name is Tora Guynet, and welcome to the Museum of Slaughter's Philosophers. Today, before our grand opening, I would like to introduce you to some of our philosophers through this presentation, through our finest exhibit called Throughout the Ages, the Philosophy of Science. This exhibit will seem to come to life before your eyes, literally. Please no food or drinks or flash photography, even though this is merely a video presentation. And please do not engage or interact with the philosophers, even though this is also a video. On behalf of the Museum of Slaughter's Philosophers, please have a wonderful virtual tour. For our first stop on this tour, we are going to meet one of our most incredible, fundamental, and humble philosophers. Meet Plato.
Yes, it is I, the humble and faithful servant of Socrates. It is I am the so humble, the one who got tried or whatever, that is Socrates, whatever, long story. Yet it is I, the humble and faithful teacher of Aristotle. I was born in 1428 BCE in Tuscany, Greece. Socrates was my most beloved mentor who brought out the life and thought of me. After his death, I was so unsure what to do with myself. I was scared to go out in public. So I traveled extensively around Greece, Italy, and Egypt, just contemplating things. I persevered and founded the Academy around 380. It was an influential center of learning that attracted many men, such as my prodigy Aristotle. However, my life is not what is important. Philosophy is, however. I've been contemplating this world for many years now, and the idea of forms is one that I might address. I believe that the physical realm is only a shadow or image of the true reality of the realms of forms, as I mentioned in my work, Phaedo. In my work, The Republic, I talk about the constitution of the ideal state, a realm of forms that does not exist on Earth. We can form opinions about them through a theory called recollection. If there's one thing you need to know, the particular over the universal.
Excuse me for one moment, if I may, grab your attention. My name is Aristotle. Yes, I am much older than the Queen of England. I was born approximately 384 BCE, whatever that means. And during my years as a child, I grew up in the northeastern region of Greece. When I was 17, I traveled to Athens to be a student in Plato's Academy. It was there I began delving into philosophy and understanding how we interact with the universe around us. Eventually, I traveled throughout the entire continent of Asia, the whole world in Asia, to further the development of my theoretical science. During my time of study at Plato's Academy, and as I traveled throughout Asia, I developed many ideas that you may be familiar with. Most of these ideas were summarized in my work, The Metaphysics, which you may have heard of and even read in one of your classes. This included my work on mathematics, physics, and natural philosophy. Now, what really enthralled my mind as a young pupil was the concept of logic. I did develop the first concept of logic myself, which led to the known theory of deduction. The conclusions I have introduced are very simple, mind you, and break down the very foundation of logic, dialect, and rhetoric. Simply put, a valid argument is derived from a deduction that can lead to a necessary conclusion. As my faithful teacher introduced, there are universals around us that play a part in the qualities of matter that we interact with. However, these universals, these forms, as Plato calls them, cannot exist without the world of matter. Allow me to explain. Everything around us is characterized by a multitude of qualities. This apple, for example, is yellow, as would any other yellow apple be considered yellow. Now, these apples are not yellow because of some supernatural existence of yellow being applied to them. No. The concept of yellow is found in these apples and is therefore applied to every other yellow apple. This creates the universal theory of yellow. Now, is that not fascinating? Characters and qualities of objects are simply the intersection of the world of matter and the realm of the universals, the forms. Neither can exist without the other. We cannot observe concepts from observation of supernatural forces. Knowledge of the universals is not obtained through its supernatural force, no. It is obtained through intellect and experience and observance through our senses. I decided to begin a school of my own in Athens around the year 335. Now, I won't keep you here much longer before my professor starts trying to fill your head with silly knowledge. Now, we must move along. I must introduce you to this wonderful man named Galileo. He invented technology to see the stars. Is that not wonderful? Now, I must warn you, do not ask him about the center of the universe.
Center of the universe. We'll get to that later. On February 15th, 1564, I was born in Pisa, Tuscany. As a young boy, I attended the University of Vallombrosa and then the University of Pisa, where I intended to study medicine. However, there, I was introduced to mathematics. And my heart, mathematics is so beautiful. You must love it as much as I do. I was immediately attracted to it from the first class that I ever took. Mathematics is the language by which God writes the universe, and I can prove it to you. I once traveled to the top of the Pisa Tower to experiment on the speed of fall of heavy objects proportional to their weight. I dropped many small and many large objects, like these two here. Instead of proving the Aristotelian theory that the speed of a fall of heavy objects is proportional to their weight, I discovered that the distance fallen by a body is proportional to the square of the elapsed time, and that the trajectory of a projectile is a parabola. Weight and speed of falling objects have zero correlation. Fascinating, don't you agree? I received much pushback for my work. I even lost my position as the head of the chair at the University of Padua of Mathematics. So disappointing. I don't even think they understand what they did. But if you have not gotten enough detail from me, you must also look at my book, De Motu, or On Motion, for those of you who don't speak Italian. The study of motion has always fascinated me, especially the way the heavens move. I like to say that the Bible shows us the way to go to heaven, not the way the heavens move. But I will discover the way that the heavens move. Only mathematics can show that. But the application of mathematics to the heavens is another passion of mine known by astronomy. The Chinese have been making these things called telescopes recently, and I got my hands on one, but it appears as if they're not very good, so I must make my own. It took me very, very long to learn the art of lens grinding to be able to create these telescopes, but they are much more powerful than the Chinese ones, and I can see into the heavens, into all of the celestial bodies. I was able to discover 4 moons revolving around Jupiter and many more stars than people would have ever known, as you can see from these lovely, lovely pictures. Now, I did once see the most peculiar thing, though. I saw a planet that seemed to have rings around it, rings circling it, as if that could never be a possibility. I have since discovered that this planet is known as Saturn. What a lovely name, don't you agree? But another discovery that piqued my curiosity was that Venus, a planet known for the goddess of love, was somehow going through phases, just like our moon does. All of these discoveries, all of these things that I have seen just seem to prove the idea that the sun is the center of the universe. Using the mathematics that I have discovered, all of these motions of bodies, I can see that the sun must be the center of the universe, and that is a fact, no matter what your subjective truth might think. But I have detailed all these explanations in The Starry Messenger, another one of my manuscripts that you must read. The Pope, even though I dedicated the book to him in an attempt to show that it was not in bad faith, he took it in bad faith. He has condemned me to heresy. I even went on trial and had to renounce my own ideas. The agony of it! I've been under house arrest since then. I apologize for the robe. There's no use in even changing these days. However, I must say to the Catholic Church, it is truly a fault to make people think that what is true is false. Even though I was placed under house arrest and the Catholic Church tried to keep my ideas from flowing, they flowed throughout society, and the notion of the heliocentric universe, it began to be widely accepted by the people. It even became so popular among so many different groups that they decided to adopt the ideology and focus their entire lives around it. But I still stayed true to these absolute truths that the sun is the center of the universe, no matter how much everybody tried to tell me that it was not. However, some philosophers, who you'll come later to find, did not accept these ideas and did not agree in believing in the faith while still proving science, as I myself did, as I, the example, did. And as you'll see, my good friend Darwin is one of those.
Actually, we're not friends, so don't even listen to him. He'll botch my work. One thing I would love to note before we dive into my own history is the factor of religion in my studies. Unlike old Galileo, I did not have religion obstructing my studies and research. As I stated in The Origin of Species, I see no good reasons why the views given in this volume should shock the religious views of anyone. My religious studies were not affected by the idea of religion, and my studies did not negatively affect religion, but alas, I shall move on. Moving forward, I am Charles Robert Darwin, born in Shrewsbury, England on February 12, 1809. My father wanted me to go into the medical field and learn about medicine and all of that, but I knew my heart was in the natural world and the sciences. I dropped out of Edinburgh to go to Cambridge, where I was able to study beetles, very fascinating creatures. My interest in the natural world grew immensely, and I boarded the HMS Beagle, where I got to go to the Galapagos Islands and study all kinds of creatures, such as iguanas, the giant tortoises, and, as you are most familiar with, the finches. This is a major start to my journey as an evolutionary biologist. I was able to prove through finding fossils how we all have a common ancestor. Individuals in a species have mutations, and those mutations are then passed down from generation to generation. As I stated in The Origin of Species, my explanation of natural selection follows. This preservation of favorable individual differences and variations and the destruction of those which are injurious, I have called natural selection. You might also know it as survival of the fittest. The individual traits usually come from mutations in the genes, and they are passed down because those individuals are able to survive with those traits. And then those generations pass it to the next, and so on, until at the end, you have a species that is entirely different from the former. Man grows stronger and more skillful as generations pass, and we shape our morals into actions that earn us praise, and we avoid ones that get us punishments and turn society away from us. Since our intellectual and moral faculties are variable, we have every reason to believe that the variations tend to be inherited, as I stated in my work. Just as it is with animals, it is with man. Both of these concepts, the mental and the moral faculties, as well as the adaptations that come with them, aid in survival of the fittest. The best humans are able to survive through natural selection. There is no reason to limit natural selection to just bodily functions and structures. It can expand to the mind as well. And I'd like to spend one moment clearing any misunderstanding there may be about my work. I never stated that man comes from monkeys. I only stated that we had a common ancestor between the two, that generations of adaptations had drawn apart to make two different species. And we can see that as well through every other kind of species, through the vast amounts of insects and mammals and aquatic creatures in the world today. All of them have all spread out from that one common ancestor that we have all originated from. I waited 20 years to publish The Origin of Species. Seeing its success now, I am a little ashamed to say that I didn't because I feared criticism from the scientific community. I was afraid that I would lose my credibility and any other works that I put out would not be taken as seriously. But I felt it was about time to publish my work in 1859, because if I wasn't then, when would I ever? My theories must have been very inspiring because they were quoted twice in the first volume of Capital by Karl Marx. He was a big fan of me and wrote letters all the time, calling himself a true admirer. He also stated that my work had a basis in natural science and for the class struggles of history. He later took it back though and stated that my beliefs were just based on a capitalist model, economic system, whatever, I don't really care. But we don't really need to talk about that. I'd like to introduce you to Karl Marx.
Thank you, Darwin. I heard you never actually read the copy of the book that I sent you, but I don't regret any of my letters of admiration. So here is another one for you.
Thanks.
Anyways, enough of Darwin. Let me tell you about the crazy life that I lived. When I attended the University of Bonn, I was constantly reprimanded for being drunk and unruly. Just to keep things spicy, I joined a radical political group called the Poets Club. It sounds peaceful, but it was not. I was also co-president of the Trier Tavern Club, a drinking society that antagonized the more aristocratic organizations on campus. That unfortunately landed me in jail. After my wild college life, I decided to lay low and settle down. By that, I meant I consecutively was exiled from the capital cities of France, Belgium, and England. I was born in Trier, Prussia in 1818 to Jewish parents. When I was young, my family was baptized into the evangelical faith, even though we were Jewish, just because of my dad's job. But I still faced prejudice and discrimination for my Jewish heritage. This made me question the role of religion in society and made me want to pursue forms of activism. My father, a successful lawyer, was devoted to the ideals of the Enlightenment, particularly Kant and Voltaire, which also greatly inspired me. My most famous and influential work, as you can see, is the Communist Manifesto, which I hope to impact and influence the entire world. My, as I like to call him, sidekick, Frederick Engels, also helped me write it, but I'm clearly the most important author. I wrote that to declare that class struggles or the exploitation of one class over the other are the motivating force behind all historical developments. I argue that capitalism would evidently self-destruct itself to be replaced by socialism and eventually communism. Here is an example of what will happen to all capitalist nations. I also claim that religion was the opioid of the people, used as just a form of control. There is nothing true about religion at all. I also wrote Das Kapital, where I talk about how the capitalist system exploits labor for its own financial gain. Looking back on my work, I am proud to see the profound effect it has on many nations today. There have been even wars over my ideology. I knew it was only a matter of time before communist regimes rose up and took over the world. I'm still waiting for a revolution to occur in America, but I know one will happen soon. Hopefully, just like this. My ideology has affected the world.
Marks.
Yes.
So, people have to pay to get in this museum, right? Only the rich are able to view the knowledge available in this building. So
Are you
how
kidding
can you
me?
stay in here in a place funded by a capitalistic society?
I can't. Dethrone God! Destroy capitalism! Darwin, are you coming? You should join me. Dethrone God!
It's not love, it's survival of the fittest. Evolution revolution!
Don't leave me out. No more house arrest. The sun is the center of the universe, not you.
I'm telling you, it's about the material. I'm serious.
No,
you have to go
forms,
down.
forms,
Materials. My name is Aristotle, and I wrote the works Metaphysics. You might have heard of it. I don't need to do a British accent. I'm sorry. This apple, for example. This apple is yellow, and I don't remember why.